Hey guys, it's Billy here with the Disciples, and I'm here with Alex and Sam. We're just going to have a quick discussion about things going to be on the upcoming, we say June, maybe July, uh, June 2020 ban list. But we've all got our predictions here. But I think before we get into any predictions, I think probably worth just discussing kind of the state of the meta game the way it is, what we think needs to be hit. What do you guys think? Where should we really start?
Well, I mean, it's pretty obvious that the main two decks, aside from the striker deck that somehow won on the weekend, it's Rocks and it's variants of Eldritch. And so I feel like because those are two very recent decks, any hits to them will be indirect, like Block Dragon or Alice the Invoker or Jet Synchron or something. But I don't feel like that meta is in a place where you can directly just gut those engines themselves.
No, I agree with
Yeah,
you there. But I think the meta it's becoming a lot more defined as of recent. We know we have to define two best decks with other decks like Striker, Salamangreat, Invoked variants, those kind of decks that also just pop up a lot. And I'm enjoying the format, but we're expecting a ban list any day now. So yeah,
And we should get a ban list because of they should theoretically be supporting remote duels, so we need to keep up to date with that, right?
yeah, that is true. I'm interested to see how well updated they are going to stay with stuff like this. I mean, this is the days of the online meta, but the thing I'd say is it's interesting. So we think it's too soon from Secret Slayers to directly hit any of the best decks. We also are looking at, can you really say to people who've gone out and paid for for meta decks that they're not cheap. Like, I mean, look at the price of Eldritch, what that's been. Um, can you really say to those people, yeah, we're never gonna let you play those decks at least a decent power level in any real life event? I think it's definitely a big thing that's going to influence this list. I think, not to spoil any of the predictions, but I think we're all looking at a slightly lighter touch list than we've been used to on the previous few. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I think I'm expecting a ban list in line with what we got for most of 2019, where it was always like taps. It was dealing with a problem card in a deck that was already super strong, like how August had to deal with. First, it was what Bardiche that got banned. Then it was Mermaid, and then even in Harp, I think they're still top two tracked. So it'll always be hitting things that are really good because of these decks, rather than hitting the decks that are really good.
yeah, there's not much to add to that really. You've kind of both hit it nail on the head, or with a nail on the head even.
So I think it's probably fair to say then. So going to those two main decks before we get on to full on predictions. The rock decks. I think everyone is pretty understanding of what the problems are with that deck, like where you should be hitting things, where the issues come from with that deck. I think the more interesting deck to look at from a balance perspective is definitely Eldritch, because Eldritch itself is more of an engine than a deck at this point, and I think you've got to look at, as we said, they're not going to hit it directly, and are they going to hit enough engine pieces to actually curb it enough to actually have an impact on the meta?
The problem for me is that someone said in a group chat I was in on the weekend that there's not really anything you can currently actually side for Eldritch, because what can you actually do to stop them once they get to their engine, just constantly getting advantage and constantly grinding out wins through that? And similarly, there's not really anything within the deck itself that you can hit, and there's nothing outside of the deck itself that you could hit to curb its power. You can hit the variants that its Eldritch has sort of been thrown into, like you could hit some form of the needle fiber plays, jet synchron or tuning or whatever, and then because obviously you can't hit needle fiber, Hulk Vibrax yet. And for the invoke variants, you just hit an invoke card, but the actual engine itself, unless they want to, hit a card that's probably never nobody's actually played in person yet because of COVID, I just don't see that deck getting hurt at all.
No, it's a very similar kind of place as the rock deck. When you look at it, like majority of the engine cards have come out in Secret Slayers. Well, the main ones anyway, as well as the majority of the extra deck is or has been released within the last 2 months. When you look at like, there's 15 cards, and I think probably 7 or 8 of them are from the last 2 months. So like, it seems very hard to hit that deck as well.
Yeah, I think the problem is as well that, you know, as a Yu-Gi-Oh player, you're looking at the current meta, and you're also obviously always looking at what's coming next. And I think you do genuinely look at a kind of like, there's not anything where you're looking at a deck and going, wow, this has a chance to break that top two just on its strength alone.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
think I think that's the issue that you have right now. So it's hard to weaken those top two too much, because I don't know if there's a deck coming or that deck in existence right now that can really fill that void.
No, I mean, I'm not 100% sure what's coming out in the next few sets. The only thing I know that's coming out like relatively soon is Red Eyes Dragoon. Nearly forgot his name then, but like, I'm not even sure if that's like enough of a card to sway the meta completely from these two decks, especially because they're just that powerful.
How do Eldritch actually deal with Red Eyes Dragoon, out of interest?
Um, I don't know, but there's probably an extra deck card that deals with it, which they can play.
Yeah, the problem is the Eldritch engine itself has so much space that you can
Yeah,
dedicate
exactly.
cards to deal with specific combos. Like, that's one of the strengths of the deck. But so in terms of I think what we're saying at the moment, we've got a pretty good grasp of where the meta is at the moment.
Yep.
Obviously, briefly discussing kind of what the problems with it are. We obviously briefly touched on Halki Firebrax, and I'm sure that within our individual lists we'll have potentially the same, potentially different ways of approaching hitting or at least weakening Halki Firebrax, because it's a card that's warped the game, along with cards like Link Cross that go with it. And I think it's, as we said, it's pretty new. Again, not many people have played with this card in real life, so it's going to be interesting to see how we all approach. But if you guys, are you guys happy for us to move on to our predictions?
Yeah. Why don't we
Yeah.
start talking about the ban cards then?
Okay, so I'll start with the banned cards that I'm predicting that Konami might hit on this list, and I've only got 3, but they're pretty impactful. So I think, going back to what we said about Haki Firebrax, and we'll discuss it after we've all discussed the our banned sections, because I'm pretty sure that we're all going to have similar opinions on this, is Jet Synchron. I think that card is too powerful in these Eldritch decks at the moment. I think to combat with that, you're looking at Mecha Phantom Beast O-Lion. It's kind of a victim of Valky Firebrax and of Auroradon and of all these absurd cards that we've got recently. And then the last card I've got in here is actually purely for Eldritch, who seem to be able to make it consistently, is True King of All Calamities, which is a card that any format where that card can be made with relative ease is a painful format to play in, because that card is just an unfun card. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's kind of my list of banned cards. Sam, do you want to talk us through what you have down as banned?
So I have 2 cards driven by logic and 2 by salt. So I think Jet Synchron O-Lion, I do feel you can't hit Fiber, obviously, because it's so new, based on the Konami's history. And then, so obviously O-Lion is a good enough thing to hit. It's integral to so much degeneracy that Needle Fiber enables in the top decks at the moment. So it's just an easy hit. And then Jet Synchron again, is just too good in Synchro Eld, and it's you can't really hit Eld directly, so you hit Jet Synchron. And then the 2 driven by Salt are Mystic Mine, because that card's not fun at all, and then
So personally, I do not think those last two cards should be banned, but um, with regards to my ban section, it's different yet similar. So I've also got Jet and VFD on my list. VFD being True King of all calamities. Um, Again, like Jet is just such an insane card. It's almost, well, very comparable to that of Glow Up Bulb. It's a one card Hulk of Hybrax, which is pretty insane when you think about it. And then VFD, True King of all calamities. Again, it's just such an insane floodgate type card. It stops your opponent being able to play Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's not something you want. Um, Realistically, when you look into a format, especially when it can be made with such ease, as of right now, when you literally just summon a Hulk of Fibrax and you can go straight into VFD and draw 3 cards, which is insane. But my list also has Despot 001 on the list. I'll touch on this again in a minute, but I think that banning this card may seem a bit irregular, but it makes a lot of sense when you actually think about it. Because if without Jack Synchron, it's the next best machine type tuner monster besides O-Line that goes into Auroradon, and then Auroradon's where you'd get your O-Line from. But I don't think O-Line's too terrible when you actually take O1 out of the format, because although O-Line lets you do cool combos and with like Metal Marcher and Link Cross, I don't think that's a bad thing because it only gets you to like a negate and a couple of tokens. But when you've got 001 in the mix as well, you can do some insane things with Auroradon, and things that also just aren't being looked at aren't being looked at right now, such as Mecha Phantom Beast Cult Wing, and if you have double Despot 001, you can make multiple level 4 synchros and then just get insane advantage from there. And then my fourth and final card that I've banned is Block Dragon, because personally I don't think putting it to 1 is actually enough to hinder the Block Dragon deck, Adamancipator, significantly enough to stop it from being the number 1 best deck.
Okay, that's interesting. I think we'll probably fair to say we'll come back to Block Dragon.
Yeah.
I think that's something we'll definitely discuss a little bit later on.
Yeah.
But I think for now, what's interesting. So fair enough. Where we all agree on Jet Synchron.
Yes. Yep. Yeah. 100%.
That's the number one. I think that's pretty much everyone's number 1 card on the list that needs to be hit. It's too powerful, and to hit Glow Up Bulb and to leave this card untouched. I think I get there's a difference, but at the same time, the difference
Literally
is
did the
functionally
whole thing.
nothing.
Glow Up Bulb literally did the whole thing on its own, and Jet Synchron's in a way potentially more advantageous for Eldritch because it can just discard whatever you want.
Yeah, that's the thing. That cost, that kind of that drawback is not a drawback. And so I think to look at Glow Up Bulb and Jet Synchron are functionally the same card in terms of their function. So I think if one is banned, and I think we all agree that Glow Up Bulb is correctly banned, with Needle Fiber's existence, then Jet Synchron also needs to join it.
We might start seeing Lefty and Righty Driver played at some point. Who knows?
Honestly, I'd love to see cards like that coming out. The problem right now is that you've got too many kind of free extenders, which are harder to hit with kind of traditional hand traps and things like that. Just playing something like that, which it can lose to a Veiler, it can lose to an Ash, this kind of stuff. It's more interaction in the game, whereas Jet Synchron is so interact with. I think that's also an element of it. So two of us, obviously Sam, have O-Line on the list, and Betty, instead of O-Line, you had 001. So Despot 001. So do you want to talk about 001 a little bit more?
Yeah, I think I described it pretty well there, but like, I think by just banning Jet, like, 001 is still, like, realistically, in all of these fiber combos, 001 is the monster majority of the time you're summoning off of the Needle Fiber if you're going into your Auroradon combo. And I think without the 001, it indirectly affects how good Auroradon is as a card, because it means that you can only realistically get into one tuner off of that combo. unless you want to go down the line of Metal Marcher, but I'm not sure how um, powerful that is when you don't have 001 or Jet in your combo with Auroradon. And especially with cards like Colt Wing, like Mega Fantasy Beast Colt Wing, which summons like two more tokens when it summons, which triggers 001 again. It means that you just have less like powerful cards to summon off of Halqifibrax. And especially if Jet's banned, that removes 6 one cards Needle Fibers, and if 001's banned, it also removes another 3. So it means that like you lose some of like the best machine starter cards in Yu-Gi-Oh to get into Halqifibrax.
Do you want to explain the why 001 removes the extra 3?
Yeah, because you
I
lose.
might not realise.
Yeah, because you play 003, Dustbot 003, which summons 001 from deck, and that's obviously a one card Needle Fiber.
Honestly, like who knew Despots would be this relevant at this point in the game?
I was having this conversation with someone the other day, and it blew my mind. But yeah.
So okay, so I think the summary of the banned cards here is pretty much like banned cards so far. The discussed is Needle Fiber. Just
Yes.
deal with it.
Yes.
Like, I think so. So then to the non Halqifibrax related cards, I think Betty, you and I both said True King of All Calamities.
Yes.
I think Sam, would you agree that you could understand that card getting hit?
Oh, totally understand it, but I can't see it happening. So I know it's definitely not a nice card to have in the format. It's so oppressive to play against, but I can't see them hitting it. So dinosaurs are really the only deck that would be able to make it if the Banlist that we expect to happens. So if they do hit all these things that can tutor out Fiber so easily, so Jet Synchro goes, O-Line goes, will Synchro Eld be able to get into the VFD easily still after that?
But it depends if they look at, as Betty said, it depends if they look at the despots. If they don't leave the despots untouched, then I bet you if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure the answer is yes.
Yeah, there's definitely. I'm pretty sure there's ways with Colt Wing and other types of Mecha Fantasy Beast cards to get into it, but I might be wrong there.
I quite like to
Fair enough.
be just seeing Mecha Phantom Beast Eldritch at this point.
Mecha Fantasy Beast cards, imagine.
Honestly, if after the ban list they expect that most of the decks are going to be able to just plop a VFD down and win because of that, all for it being banned. But I'm not seeing it get played much as is. Not sure how much it'll get played after.
Yeah, it's interesting to see players seem to be hesitant to go down that route. Do you guys have any ideas why you think that might be?
What, the route of making VFD or?
Yes, so they seem to be going for like the big level 8 synchro negates and more draws kind of play as opposed to making VFD, which it's kind of interesting because when we've discussed it with the rest of the team, we've often said that VFD is just game versus rock deck.
Yes. So, for anyone that's watched my Zephyr combo video will know that the deck utilizes VFD in a more unique way because it just means that like you don't have to do all the unique ways to get into it with Fiber. You just summon 2 Zephyr monsters, Oracle, stack the Fire Gizmet Kaku to your top of your deck, then make the Croc, draw it, make VFD. But like that play was the reason I was sold on like trying to make Zephyr as a deck like playable and competitive in the format, because from my understanding personally, VFD just beats rocks on its own, and then when you compare that to also the Eldritch deck, if you VFD them, they can't do any of the Hulk plays, which means they don't always get into their Eldritch cards, and that just puts them so far behind that you just win because they can't do anything. So
And from what I understand, you can VFD calling would it be dark, I'd assume, and then the Eldritch's effects as well, correct?
so it depends. Obviously, game 1 you probably call Earth, so you don't lose to like Block Dragon. But like post game 1, you obviously just call whatever like their engine card is. So Earth, be it for Adamancipator, or I think the Golden Lord is light. It might be dark. I'm not sure, but you call whatever the Golden Lord is anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, that's shows that I've not been playing too much myself recently. I've been watching a lot more. Yeah, so that is legit impact. Don't get it mixed up with some other cards, but so we're talking about VFD. So fair to say that none of us massively disagree with the idea
No,
of
exactly.
VFD being banned.
No, if we return back to a format, we almost had it when dinosaurs became tier 1 after we we expected Zoo to get murdered as soon as the tins came out in 2017.
Yes.
And then the
And-
dinos got murdered with them.
Yes, I definitely didn't buy a full dino deck before that list.
You know what? I did the exact same thing, Samuel.
I don't think you guys are on your own with that one. I think quite a lot of people
Yeah.
lost a lot of money on dino
Yeah.
decks.
It was very annoying.
Yeah,
Not
I just want to summon
although,
Denglong, man.
you know, Lithosajum's back. Well, we might talk about Denlong a little bit later on, but we'll
Yes.
but it's a pretty good segue there too. We said we'll talk about Block Dragon in a little bit. So we happy to move on to our
Yeah,
limited section
limited
of each of our
section.
lists.
Yeah.
So my limited section, unsurprisingly, as you could probably tell from what we've been saying, my limited section has Block Dragon in it. I think that limiting Block Dragon is enough for now, and I think we'll get into a bit of a wider discussion why I think that's the case once we've kind of
Yeah.
all set up lists. I also think that Auroradon going to 1 is a sensible thing because 2 Auroradon or multiple Auroradons allows certain plays to go through. It actually is. It's to do with it allows you to play through hand traps in a way that you couldn't if you were playing other cards. Or if it was limited to 1, and you basically if you didn't have the space for 2, like the Rock deck, if it was playing the Auroradon play, wouldn't have had space for 2 previously. But the Eldritch deck obviously has plenty of extra deck space. So it can just play 2 copies. I think that can be pretty bad. And then my last 2 cards here are I've got Blaster, the Dragon Ruler here. Now, obviously, we've seen Tempest come back, and I think Blaster is kind of in place for. It could be Blaster. I also have a theory about it being Tidal, which I'm sure we'll discuss in a bit more length. Given the stuff that Konami has just released, I think Tidal would make some sense if they want to encourage people to buy the newly released product in Eternity Code. But Blaster seems to be the kind of safer option, I would say, being that there isn't a massive fire deck. We're looking at Salamangreat. Salamangreat aren't going to play Blaster.
No.
But apart from that, there isn't a massive one. And then the last card I've got is more of a discussion point than I think they necessarily do it. But assuming that VFD gets hit, I think it would be interesting to have 1 copy of Denglong back in the format, just to see what it could do. And I know that if he's listening, my friend Danny is smiling so much because I've said for so long that I think that Denlong is too much. It's got too many effects. It's too good a card. But I think it would be interesting to see it back in the format. I know, Betty, that you for one would love to see it back in the format.
I love it so much.
But yeah, so that's my kind of limited section. How about you, Sam? What are we looking at on your list?
So I don't think there are too many things you can actually limit at this point that would actually warp the meta too much. I'm not taking anything off the list, but I think that Alistair should get some form of hit. It's such a weird engine that you can't really tap the engine into being hit aside from using extra deck stuff, but I feel like Alistair should go to 1. Block Dragon should go to 1. With all the proposed and I think just Block Dragon to 1. They won't kill rocks outright, and I feel like banning block would just be a bit too much too quickly.
Do you think banning rock kills rocks?
I don't think it kills rocks, but
later.
It'll probably kill rocks when the next wave of fiber but not actually fiber hits happen.
Right.
And the last card I think should be limited is Soul Eating Oviraptor, because dinosaurs are, much like in 2017, I feel like are a deck that is unrepresented and only sort of not doing as well as it should because Eldritch variants and rocks are so strong.
So kind of that fear of if we hit everything that we're hitting here, we just actually strengthen Dino.
Yeah, and that's why I feel that Denglong should absolutely, under no circumstances, come back at this point. But I can't see Dino just being monstrously strong. If like Block Dragon got banned, if somehow Needle Fiber got banned, I just think dinos would run away with things.
That's fair. I mean, Betty, what's your thoughts on what you think is going to be limited?
So I actually don't think there's going to be that many limited hits. Like, I actually don't think there's going to be much of a ban list at all. So what I have written down is a dragon ruler. Um, my specific like dragon ruler of choice is Blaster, just because I remember what water used to be like back in like 2014 with Tidal, and it kind of terrifies me a little bit that if they
Uh,
brought Tidal back, then it might be able to do something.
Okay, so since you brought up Tidal, let's quickly just jump into the Tidal discussion now. It's not going to be long. So the only reason I did mention Tidal was we obviously have the new Diva support,
Yes.
the new Deep Sea Diva support. Diva obviously went to 3 itself, but people aren't playing that deck. My theory is that Konami is pretty well incentivized at the moment, given that they probably have a fair bit of Eternity Code left to sell. Um, this is something that obviously you do need to think about when you're looking at predictions like this.
Yep,
They are a
exactly.
business. They probably have a lot of Eternity Code to sell. They probably want to sell those deep sea areas. And one way of getting more people playing water is by giving them a weapon like Tidal back. Now, what would it do to the meta? I don't
Horrible things.
I don't see it having this massive, like, I don't see how Tidal pushes water over the edge more than all of the tools they already have. Like, water have a lot of good cards.
You're not wrong, but I feel like there's definitely just gonna be that one guy that's gonna crack the code, and I feel like Tidal just it just makes sense. Like, it's an extender, and it just also helps manipulate your waters for Moulin Glacier, meaning you don't have to just drop it the second there's 5 engraved. Like, you can commit like 2 in the gate before making it, or before dropping it
Yeah,
even.
I
Um,
guess you could even get Nibiru'd and
yeah,
still Moon
exactly.
Glacier.
Like
Yeah.
something along those lines. Anyway, it makes me hesitant towards it. Um, but obviously, like, you just have to trust they've done R&D on it, and that makes sense. But
Yeah,
But
so
we're all in
brave,
agreement.
brave statement.
yeah,
We're all in agreement that the Earth one should not come back because
Yeah,
yes,
it should not have
yes.
Dragon Rulers.
it can't be Redox.
And
That's
also,
not okay.
it's not even just because of rocks either. It's because Redox has just got the best Dragon Ruler effect of discard it and any Earth monster to reborn a monster. Um, and personally, for me, I can't see that being like good in any way or circumstance in a format. But
That's a pretty kind of pretty overlooked effect, I would say, but
yes, yeah,
also massive in this situation, particularly when you have decks that are playing a lot of Earth, sorry,
yeah.
such as the rock deck. I think that's fair. So Betty, do you want to carry on with your limited list? Sorry for
So
cutting
yeah,
in
no,
with
no,
the
that's fine.
Dragon
Don't
Ball
worry.
discussion.
So like, I actually don't have anything else realistically besides the idea of releasing a band card that's like just crazy. For the only purpose that we're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh right now, right? Like, we can't play Yu-Gi-Oh. We can't go to our locals, our regionals, whatever, to play events. So I feel like if Konami did something like that, it would be just kind of like a source of boost of morale for the Yu-Gi-Oh
I get
community.
shivers when I think about Snatch Steal,
Yeah,
though.
exactly like that. But that format, like, even though it was crazy, as a new player, because I'd only been playing like 2.5 years at that point, I think. I'd never played with Snatch Steel, and like that was just like a fun format because like yeah, it was only like what 2 months long, maybe not even that, I don't know, but like it was just crazy that I got to like spend that time playing with a card that I'd probably never get to play with again, which probably could
I,
come back now, but like probably couldn't, I don't know, but
Snatch Steel will probably not be allowed back because of the complication with remote duels at the moment. But I do agree that like
I really want to
any
see someone resolve
oh, it'd be
resolve Snatch Steal over
maybe
remote
that's why
duel.
they put mind control to one ahead of time. They knew that
Because
this
they
complication
saw
would
COVID.
happen. But like, I was looking through the band cards earlier, and I can't really see anything that's really on there that could come back that wouldn't just cause mountains of salt. I feel like the closest is probably Cyberjar. it's a flip effect, and it's not really. I wouldn't expect it to be played in every deck. I feel like it'd just be something that gets thrown in every now and then and causes immeasurable salt for people that do just blindly attack into it. I think it'd be
Yeah,
fun.
I think it's one of those cards where I think it's clear that Konami avoid bringing back unfun cards, and I think that card is just it's not fun. It's one of those that makes people like if you got to think about that situation where you're a new player coming into the game, you haven't been to your local store before, you come in round one, you get paired against the guy, and you get sacked by Cyberjar. Now
That is an
that
interesting analogy, considering neither of you have Mystic Mine on your banned lists.
Oh, I've done that to a kid at locals before. But anyway, my point is though that like I think because it would just be fun for the community to be able to talk like when the ban list drops, be like, oh my god, they brought back this card, and then the discussions it brings up because of it. And I think because like there's no events anyway, and realistically, there's probably going to be another list between now, like the coming list if there is one, and the first real events we get anyway. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's fair. I think I think that's always a consideration to make at this point as well. Like it's a very weird situation that we're in.
very
at
very
the moment.
weird. But
So we've kind of all hit our limited cards. Now probably time we put the rocky elephant
yeah.
in the room in Blox Dragon. So obviously Betty, you had it as banned,
And yeah.
and Sam and I both feel that it should be limited. So Betty, do you want to make your case?
The card says banish 3 earth monsters to add up to 3 rock monsters from deck. And it's a dragon ruler that does not well, it can be summoned more than once per turn. And personally, I have red dragon ruler cards, and weirdly, 3 of them are still on the ban list. So and they just don't search cards as well, like the turn that they're summoned. And it just seems insane to me. Like, if we weren't in a link based format, the card would not be anywhere near as good. But because you can like dump your graveyard, summon it back, link, get a search, chain block that link from a search as well, from like hand traps, like negating it, like Ash Blossom, and then search 3 cards and just keep extending your combo and building the gates. Like, it just seems too insane to keep at 1. Um, and I'm just gonna lightly touch on why I don't think it'd be 1 either, because when you look at the rock combo, um, they just need like a tuner and a non-tuner, right, to make Halka Fibrax, and then you do your rock combo. And along the lines of that rock combo, you also just have access to Union Carrier being able to equip the Block Dragon, and then you can search by sending the equip to make a link. Oh, sorry, sending the monster it's equipped to make another link monster and get your free searches. Like that alone, as well as the Adamant Spacer deck, which is reasonably why it should be banned, has also got inbuilt access to Gallant Granite, which searches it like Block Dragon as a rock monster. Plus, it already has 3 copies of it and Foolish Burial. I just realistically, I don't think it should be a card that can stay around. But I can understand why it can go to 1, for the reasoning that like again we
Okay.
haven't got like normal format, right?
Yes. So just to argue, apart from the format points, if Sam, if you're happy for me to argue in the case of Block Dragon going for 1.
Oh no, I'm with Betty. That card should be banned, but they won't ban it at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There are too many ways to tutors out of in
So-
rocks.
So I have a bit more of a kind of a bit of a different spin on why it can go to 1. Obviously, part of it is because they're not going to hit rocks to the point where it kills them, and I think Block Dragon doesn't kill them, but it does make them a hell of a lot less powerful. Thing I would say is that when we've discussed with guys who've done very well, like Gabriel who's done amazingly, and our friend Tristan obviously who's done brilliant things with the rock deck, in recent online tournaments. The thing that they've said, and when we were discussing theory with them, was that Block Dragon was most powerful when it was hard drawn, because they would often say in the mirror, if he has the Block Dragon in hand, it doesn't matter what hand trap I have.
Yeah.
He's just playing through it. And the key thing is, so just reducing the chances of that person drawing it in their opening hand. So yes, they can use granite to search it, but you can hit granite to stop it being searched. Like there's interaction there. Also, you can use carrier, but carrier is limiting in the fact that obviously it can't come back. So one of the best plays in the rock deck with block dragon is the fact that you can go IV block dragon and get those searches in your opponent's turn. Obviously, that's turned off if you union carrier it. So I think like putting it to 1 actually does a decently significant amount to just make the deck slightly more vulnerable. I think that's the approach you have to, because we're not going to be hitting any decks to the point where they're dead. I think you have to make the decks more vulnerable. That's why I quite like Sam talking about Alistair, the Invoker. Like
Yeah.
just
The-
hitting that engine, just putting that to 1 means that if you can interact with that one Alistair, you just give yourself so much better chances. So if you're just basically making the decks weaker to interaction, that makes the game more interesting, because at the moment both decks kind of have a certain way of playing through interaction. If I draw this, or if I do this, or if I, a bit like I said with the double Auroradon as well. That would be my approach to doing this list, and I think Block Dragon going to 1 makes a lot of sense with that attitude.
So I agree with your sentiment that like they shouldn't be hitting the deck right now. I think like the wise decision is obviously like, again, there's no events right now, so this list doesn't matter too much. So like block should realistically go to 1, but I think if they want to get rid of the rock deck, like it's obviously like the way to kill it. And also I've, I'm going to talk about this, I think, later in the video. Maybe even a separate video, who knows? Maybe we're strapped for content. But I don't think limited and semi-limited cards should exist on the ban list to begin with. So my take is that if a card should be at 1, it should be It should be banned, and that's kind of why I put Block Dragon in the ban section. Like, it's too powerful to be at 1. It shouldn't be it shouldn't be limited. It should be banned.
So it's interesting you use that for limited. I think, and as you said, we'll probably discuss it a little bit further, but when we get to our semi-limited and unlimited sections.
Yeah.
But I think that sentiment is definitely more true for semi-limited. I think that is the most useless pit of the ban list, as we will see
Yes.
from my extensive list of
Yes.
semi-limited cards. We will see that that's probably the bit of the list that we don't give a lot of credit to. And I think for limited, that might be a bit of a stretch, but I'm sure, to be honest, that would be an interesting take to potentially take into another video.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people will have opinions on that, and to be honest, that's a good point to. If you guys listening have any kind of opinions on that, like please comment, and we'll take a look at them and see if who side you come down on, whether you come down on the kind of that limited cards are somewhat necessary, or you think that like it should be banned or a 3, and that's kind of it.
And also,
to see where people are on that.
Yeah, and also if you just have like any other opinions on our list, and what you would do with the ban list yourselves, then also let us know down in the comment section below.
We are brave people talking directly to ask people to put stuff in the YouTube comments.
Yes, we are.
But suckers for punishment, apparently.
Shall we look at the semi-limited section then?
Yeah, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
Yeah.
We all obviously had a dragon ruler as well.
Yeah.
So semi-limited section. I will. My semi-limited cards are none. I believe that this section shouldn't exist. As I said, semi-limited cards there are very rare exceptions. The perfect example of a card that should be semi-limited is Destiny Hero Malicious. I think that is the one card I can think of where semi-limited status actually makes sense.
And to be honest, Reborn Tengu initially also
Yeah,
100%
no, Tengu also fits under that.
space.
But they're very similar
really-
cards.
Yeah, Tengu can make sense, but obviously the power level's kind of changed since the time where that would have been relevant. But yeah, it's those kind of cards that makes sense to be at semi-limited status, but I think for the vast majority of cards, I know the OCG has just put a bunch of cards into the semi-limited section, which I find astounding, quite frankly, and I don't know how they're doing their lists.
I
But
think they put a lot of things into the semi-limited section that then on the next list went into the limited section. So I think semi-limited is basically Konami's naughty step or the trial run. And
Right.
either something's, we'll see how it goes at 2, and if it doesn't do anything, we'll put it at 3, or we'll put it at 2 because we don't want to kill it and put it to 1 just yet. But it very rarely, except for stuff like Malicious, where it sort of yo-yos between 3 and 2, and I think it was a 1 at one point or another, was it? But
Probably, yeah.
yeah,
Well, Malicious at 1 sounds fun.
like Rat Peer at 1, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Well, no, Rat does something. Rats are foolish. Like, people don't give Rat enough credit.
Combo.
It does actually get played in 2 decks.
Rat's
sad.
now actually Rat is now actually a full combo to get to the big link again, which is kind of amusing.
Yeah.
But
That's
but yeah, so kind of with off the back of that. So what's on your semi-limited list, Sam?
I've just got Seer. I think BA aren't really doing anything. It's a fan favorite deck. It's exactly the kind of thing that Konami would like to do to build a bit of goodwill, I guess, like they did with Shadows. I mean, obviously the unlimited Shadows because they wanted to push a further structure deck that they had planned further down the line. But
But it was a fan voted structure deck as well, right?
Yeah, it was. But I think was Burning Abyss also on that poll list? I can't remember.
I don't have a clue.
I'm sure. I don't remember it.
I actually think it would have won if it was on there. So like.
Yeah, it's one of those.
Yeah,
but then again,
it
it is a lot stronger. It's got a lot stronger following in the TCG and especially Europe.
Yeah, it's a huge fan favorite,
Especially a certain region in Europe as well. But
indeed, yes.
So my semi-limit kind of follows suits to Sam, where I've only got Seer and Orgraph. I'm not sure which one. Like Seer, to be honest, maybe I should have just put it in the unlimited section. I could see Seer being at 3 again.
That would make sense with your attitude.
Like, because
I love the fact that you've put a card in semi-limited despite saying that you don't think the section.
yeah,
should
no.
exist.
So I wanted a card on each. What can I say? But like, realistically, it could just be at 3 instead. I don't think Graf should be there, but like, I feel like they can boost either one of those cards, and it'll create hype around the deck again, and they'll get people interested in playing Yu-Gi-Oh. Like Tom Rose, for example.
Hi,
biggest BA
I'm
boy.
sure you're loving this right now.
And then for example, like he loves BA obviously, and like I know he doesn't really enjoy the game right now, and just seeing one of those cards go up in numbers might entice him to play more Yu-Gi-Oh and get more interested in the game. And that can probably be said about other countries as well and players.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Like BA, it's a deck that I don't enjoy myself, but I know that a lot of people do, and I think that's probably the problem with BA. I think it's really hard to assess BA's power level.
Yeah.
Like you never know BA's power level until it's been kind of played again, and then you're like, oh wait, no, it's still really good.
Yeah, it just depends. I feel like in the current formats and years, it's not the BA cards, but it's what the BA cards enable and the cards around the BA cards. And currently,
there was this good card that the BA deck played. I think it was called Block Dragon. That card.
Oh yeah, that card
was pretty good in BA.
It was okay, God, but I think that it became a lot worse when Sekka's Light was hit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sekka's Light, perfect kind of card for that deck.
But yeah, I think that about covers it for the semi-limit section. So unlimited. I'm just gonna start this off here with the obligatory Maxi at 3.
Right, so we get this out of the way, boys.
Yeah. So we might as well just cover this right now. Personally, I've got it on the list because it makes sense and doesn't make sense. Like Maxi is such a polarizing hand trap because it limits your opponent's play to such an extent that they can either play and they give you X amount of draws between like 1 or 2 if their play is small, or if you're seeing these block dragon, like the block dragon Adamantium deck and all these Hulk Fibrax combos, they're giving you probably in the region of 10 draws or so, maybe more. I don't even know. And I feel like that, like, inconsequently, if that's even the right word, we'll find out soon. If that like helps hinder the decks without having to hit cards currently, because they can't hit cards like Halka-Fibrax. Realistically, they can't hit cards like Halka-Fibrax, Auroradon, even to some extent like Block Dragon and stuff, just because they don't want to hit these decks that are like so new to the game. So maybe we'll see Max C for this period of time, just to like dethrone these decks from the best deck, and we might see a slower, more tempo-based format.
My only gripe with cards like Maxi is a pretty perfect example of it, is that there is pretty much no drawback to just throwing 3 into your deck and dropping it at any point against any deck that special summons even once. So cards like Dimensional Shifter and I think to a lesser extent Dark Ruler No More, they are cards that, while with have strong effects, there are significant drawbacks to them. Shifter is a much stronger card than Dark Ruler No More, but because the drawback is equally strong or harsh, it doesn't really get played as much, and because there isn't really any deck that could play it and also play on their turn as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a
But
key point on Max C here, which is that we all believe it's fair to say it's a 0 or 3 card.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they should.
When it was at 1, oh my god.
Yeah, I had a guy Maxini go full zoo combo, Emerald, draw it off Emerald, drop it on me next turn. That was the day it had got put to 1, and I then wanted it to go to banned straight after. I don't know if I still want it banned. I feel like I prefer the format without it, but
Yeah.
I do think that the drawbacks to playing it are pretty much non-existent, and for a card like that strong and that oppressive to exist, it shouldn't.
It's
be
also
that free.
it's also a level. Is it level 2 Earth, right?
Yeah.
Insects monster.
But it's not rock, thankfully.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
But
Rock.
yeah. but you're talking about
exactly.
silly things like just having that extra bit of synergy as well is like I think there could be a time for the discussion on Maxi and it coming back, but I think simply just due to that little extra bit, I don't think this is the format.
No, I can believe that as well. But someone had to mention it now, didn't they? So.
Yep.
Oh yeah, it's not a Banlist prediction unless we talk about Maxi.
Exactly. So the only other card I have, which is another massively controversial card, is I put Spellbook of Judgment to 3 because realistically, Spellbook cards suck, and what deck? In my eyes, you've got because although once we started talking about this, I learned that Spellbook of Judgment is just spell cards, not spellbook cards are activated. But you have to play spellbook cards in your deck to search off of Judgment. So that obviously makes your deck worse because the spellbook cards just aren't good. But yeah, it can summon the floodgate monsters like Jowgun or even Kaiku to a lesser extent. But when you consider the rest of the format, where we've got these 1-card combos that summon VFDs or draw 4 or 5 cards and still make negates, I actually don't think that's a bad thing. Where when you have to consider they have to play a large amount of spells, they have to play 3 spells minimum to summon Jowgun, and what deck realistically is going to open Judgment and a way to 3 spells and still make a good play? I don't know. It just seems too much. Maybe though they could have just limit this, then semi-limit, then unlimit this card. But again, as I've been saying throughout this video, I think it'd be a really nice thing just to throw random curveballs into the format as we can't actually play, and it's just fun to theory decks.
Pendulum scales count towards its spell count, right?
They do indeed.
Sure, but Pendulum
Let's never
suck.
unban Judgment.
Pendulum suck.
Yeah,
though.
I think Pendulum saying Pendulum suck is a dangerous game. Drift also just turned off the video, by the way.
Oh, no.
Pendulums are either broken or garbage. I feel like there's very rarely an in-between.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that.
Obviously for Triff it's always broken, but
yeah.
for the rest of... I don't know.
Yeah, he just hasn't quite got his head around this format yet, but we're expecting it any day now. So in terms of unlimits, I think it's dangerous to play the Spellbook of Judgment game. I think anyone who lived through that format and it's just before I got in the game, I was starting to pay attention to the game during that format, and I think anyone who lived through that format would say, no, thank you, never again. And I think they are completely entitled to say that for a card
So,
like that.
as the spellbook player, I do not know what you're on about, but okay.
I also have uh, secret
And
blue boys, so I am all for Judgment coming back, but for actual
God, guys,
meta, the actual meta, I think it'd be horrific.
unbiased pillars of the community we are.
Exactly.
So I think so. So that's Betty's very controversial unlimited section. Sam, to go through yours.
So I've just put Barrage, or Zodiac Barrage. Dryden's come back. Everyone sort of played it a lot at the start because Zoo was actually quite a fun deck back in 2017. But
Great format.
yeah, I mean, it was a good format up for a while, but it did get a bit samey after. But I enjoyed it. I thought it was great. But I do not. Zoo Barrage went to 1, so Dryden could come back from 0 to 1. And as Barrage has done nothing really, or Zoo's at all have done nothing since it came back, I feel like it could probably go to 3 no problem.
You reckon that Konami would ever reverse that so quickly?
Yeah, why
Yeah,
not?
I've seen them do some questionable things, so why not?
I mean, Construct went
It's rare
from
that they go back
0.
on that.
Yeah, but Construct went from 0, where it had been for I don't know how many years. Then it went to 1, and then it went to straight to 3 after.
Yeah, but there's a slight difference there.
Yeah,
which
that's
is
obviously
you're
different,
talking
but,
about a card coming back from the ban list is completely different from a card
yeah,
that's
you're
on
right.
its way to getting more
Um,
kind of more restricted,
I guess
and then
the only
reversing
similar one
course.
is Call by the Grave, with that weird semi-limit.
That was strange. That was a very strange hit that they did there, and I think that going back to 3 was definitely a change of direction. But also the ban lists have changed quite a lot since then. I think their approach to ban lists has definitely changed in the last year or so.
Yeah.
So
and
I
the
think
last one's Tour
needs
Guide.
to take.
Tour Guide
Tour-
should come back. Why
Tour
not?
Guide's interesting. So Tour Guide's a very obviously a stupidly powerful card, just inherently. But I think do we really think it can have any particular impact here? It's
The
again
thing is,
Tom Rose is very happy with it right now.
the thing is, like,
Talking about Tour Guide coming back.
it's already at 2, and as we've said, like, semi-limit cards are like, they might as well, like, majority of the time they should just be at 3. And like, I feel like in this situation, like, it doesn't, it just makes sense for it to be at 3 as well, I guess, like,
Yeah, I understand that. Like it's one where it seems like it's in the wrong place
yeah,
as semi-limited. Whether Konami are going to do anything about that, I don't know. But it seems like Tour Guide being semi-limited is a very weird place, and you're kind of saying it's like a stepping stone almost to,
yeah.
Yeah.
which would make sense.
And also, I've only got 1 German secret, so I need to buy another one anyway. So if it goes to 3, I still have to buy 2. So it's not actually too bad for me. Like, either way, I've got to buy more. So I'm like,
Well, that's these are the important things.
exactly. It's like, either way, I've got to buy tour guides. But if it goes to 3, I just have to buy 1 more than I would already. So it's fine. But like, how about your unlimited section, Billy?
So my unlimited section is an interesting one. So there's one thing that we haven't mentioned yet, which is the Red MD errata.
Yes,
Which,
that's true.
assuming that the errata, I am not 100% when exactly we're getting the errata. I believe it's in Toon Chaos.
Ooh, that'd be insane.
If it's in Toon Chaos, then I assume, which it may well have been confirmed already, then I would assume that it probably goes to 3 either on this list or the next one with the errata. The hard once per turn is a big limitation on Red
Yeah.
MD. That kind of hurts what made Red MD so good.
They have historically taken things off the unrestricted things after the reprint with the errata. So
Yeah,
I would imagine
so that's
it
what I'm
wouldn't.
interested in. Well, it depends when we get this list. right? Like at the end of the day, we don't know the date we're getting this. We think it's going to be soon, but if this is in a few weeks, then you're talking about Red MD's reprint coming out and then getting the errata. So it may well be that that's actually a signifier of when the date, which would be a bit of a shame. I think it would be nice to get some kind of changes a bit sooner than that. But then the only other things I've got, and this is where I am going to ask another thing in the YouTube comments. If anyone can explain to me why Birdman and Night Assailant aren't at 3, I would love to understand.
Oh, I think Birdman's got like loops with a card that like I can't think of the card, but like
Yeah, this is the thing. I'm kind of, I feel like there's a reason,
yeah,
but the thing is, when I look at the ban list, as we kind of said for the banned cards, even in the limited cards now, we're running out of cards that you can realistically bring back. And I think Night Assailant is definitely one that you can bring
yeah,
back, and I think that Birdman
probably
is an
is.
interesting one that almost certainly could come back, even with the loop. You know, if someone could explain to me what that would look like, if that, it seems like one of these cards that is a bit outdated in that it can be interacted with a lot more now, and therefore is a lot less powerful. So I think that could definitely be a card that comes back, and I'd like to see it back in the game. It's an interesting card.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. I like that card. Search it off GGX, fun. Are there any other
So
thoughts about this then, or?
so I think we've come up with a pretty good set of cards here between us. I think, somewhere in between all of our lists, there's probably a good ban list. Who knows what Konami are thinking? They might
Yeah.
go in a completely different direction to us. Hey, Simo plays ban list, and sometimes that's better than his actual predictions. So, we'll see exactly we'll see exactly how this
How it
turns
goes
out.
out, yeah.
Hopefully in the next week or two. But so with that, I guess just obviously usual shout outs to the Brotherhood and to Metamats for always supporting the team. And guys, if you like the video, please give us a like. Comment if you didn't. Tell us why. Comment with your ban lists, and
Ooh.
subscribe to the channel if you want to see more content, as well as our Facebook and Instagrams. And